Sure. So today the meeting is going to be a bit shorter because Alex and Max have to go for chess club after. But we thought really long and hard about what we wanted to do for this meeting, and we came to the conclusion that we're going to analyze the B movie. So we're going to be looking at graphs and plotting stuff, and we're going to be using the B movie script to do it, right?
So more specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to analyze letter frequency data in the B movie compared to regular letter frequency data. And so you can find like letter frequency data on the internet. Do you have that posted, Alex?
I just posted.
I can just put in the chat.
You should post the letter frequency data website even, or okay, you got that. But okay, so the thing that Sahil just posted in the chat. Let me see if I can actually scroll up enough to find the thing.
Mm-hmm. If anything, I uploaded it, so.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just wanted to show, this, I think. If you guys go to this link here, so if you guys go to that link, you'll find a list of letter frequency data in the English alphabet. Okay. And so we were thinking when we were coming up with this coding challenge, like, I wonder if in the B movie, the letter frequency data is different. So maybe there's like more B's than in normal like English, right? Maybe there's more B's, more Z's for like buzz or something, right? Because that's something that you wouldn't hear in English like generally a lot, but maybe in the B movie it's more common, right? Yeah. So we wanted to be able to test this out. And so what we did is we looked at this data. We made it into, so we built it into our program. And then we also downloaded the B movie script. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to download the B movie script, and then we're going to write a program to run through that and count the letter frequency, right? And that's interesting in itself. However, it's not really anything new compared to what we've done. It will deal with like file, reading from files, right? Which we've done in the past. But the new part is that we're going to actually use a library called Matplotlib in order to, that's just like plot, as in like making a plot, and then lib is library, in case you're curious. The library is called Matplotlib, and what it will do is allow us to graph the data. So we'll, by the end, create kind of a double bar graph, which will show comparison between the English letter frequency and then the B movie letter frequency, so that we can test our hypothesis. And this is the sort of thing that maybe you'll do if you're going into computer science and then you end up in more of a, maybe a financial analyst kind of situation, right? Not particularly you're going to be analyzing the B movie in that case, but you'll apply some of the same concepts to more useful applications, right? Mr. Kwan is taking note. Yeah, take note. This is an excellent project. Project. Yeah.
So to get set up for today, the first thing you're going to need is to actually install that library we're going to use today. So hopefully you guys are familiar with how that goes. If you're having trouble installing it today, don't worry. I'm recording, so if you want, you can request the recording and I will upload it. Otherwise, also, I have posted the code, so if you're not able to follow along live, it's okay. The code is downloadable on the Google Classroom. It should already be up, actually, so that should help you with following along. And so you're just going to use this command, pip install matplotlib, and I'm going to run that. And for me, I already have it installed, so it's super quick, but yeah, let it install. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to go to the Streetsville Coding Club, Google Classroom here, and you're going to download this script.txt file. And you're going to click...
You're not screen sharing, by the way. I don't know if that's intentional.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, my bad. That's... okay. My mistake. Thank you for pointing that out. So, I will show that again then. I was recording it, and it was there, but it's not on...
Yeah, because you didn't share it, so you just forgot to,
Yeah, my bad. Okay. Yeah, that would have been a good thing to do. Okay. So here, I'll quickly show you how to download the script. So you're going to go here. I posted code for today. script, open a new window over here, and then you will have a download button right here. You're going to have to click the 3 dots, click download. Alternatively, you can copy paste this all, but that's going to take a while. So, and you're going to create a text file, and you're going to put that in the same folder as the rest of your project so that we can open it in our Python application. Okay? Once you have that script text file downloaded off of the Google Classroom, the other thing you're going to need to do is pip install Matplotlib. And I have put that in the chat, and hopefully you guys are familiar with how installing goes at this point. All right, and that's what's going to let us create graphs today, which is pretty cool, honestly. All right.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, I'm just going to move on here, and if you have any trouble again,
yeah, maybe you can also, like, if we do have to like get through this pretty quickly today, so perhaps like you can save your questions for the end, and then Sahil can answer maybe your questions after the meeting is done. Okay, so yes, let's first start by I was gonna say not using Matplotlib, but I mean, okay, it's a good thing to import it because we are going to use it. So specifically, we want the submodule, which is called PyPlot. All right, so there are multiple things you can do with Matplotlib, but for doing 2D graphs, PyPlot is the submodule we want, and then we'll just import that as PLT because we don't want to say matplotlib.pyplot every single time we need to use this thing, right? So yeah, so there's the script. So let's first start off by like just doing this without Matplotlib, just like trying to literally get the data into our program, right?
Right. So I've actually already organized the data from this website. If you look on this website, it kind of comes in a bit of this table right here, right? And so I've organized it into a dictionary here. The key is the letter, and the value is the number of times it appears, and it's from a sample of 40,000 words, okay? Right? And I think it's already been posted in the chat, right? So you guys can copy paste it. Alternatively, it's in that other file. You can also download it, okay? So the other thing we're going to want to count is the actual character counts in the script here. So let's see how we will do that, right? So we're also going to want to have a dictionary for that, but we're going to have to actually use our Python program to find the data here, right? So we're going to call this script character count, right? And then what we will do is, what we're essentially going to try to do is go through this entire file, look at it character by character, and count every single one of them. And it should be pretty quick because it's just linearly going through the entire file, right? Remember a linear scan? Pretty efficient, right? So we're going to start every single character in the alphabet to 0. And you might be wondering how to do that. So an option would be to do for character in, and then use the string A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I don't feel like typing all of that, right? So conveniently, there is a thing called ASCII uppercase. Import ASCII uppercase. And if we were to actually look at what that is, it is quite literally every single letter in the alphabet. So we can just loop over that, and that's every character in the alphabet. And so what we can do... Yes, are you saying something, Maxwell? Sorry.
I was just going to say there's actually a way to do, I was just thinking about this, that you can do dictionary comprehensions, I'm pretty sure. But we'll just do it like this for now.
I think that's okay. Yeah, is there? I'm not sure.
There is a way to do it. Yeah, it's just like list comprehensions. You could do it the exact same way.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
So basically, I have a comment here, and so basically that's what we will have. All right. So it's just going to be A is 0, B is 0, and so on until Z, right? And so now what we need to do is actually count the characters in our B-movie script, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to open that file.
Right, and now previously when we've been doing this, you may remember that you have to we said that you have to also supply a second argument, which is whether you're going to be reading, writing, appending, because there's different modes, right? Or read, writing. By default, if you don't pass anything in, it assumes you're going to read, which is what we're going to do in this case. So it's perfectly fine to leave it the way that Alex has it here, with only the one argument in the open. But if you want to make that more explicit, there's no reason that you couldn't also just like over here, put an R, and that would be the same thing.
Yeah, so basically that.
Yep.
Okay. And we're going to want to deal with this line by line. We don't want to load in too much at a time. We don't want our program to feel overloaded, so we're going to give it little chunks of work to do at a time. So we're going to go line by line. And so the way we can do that is by using a while true loop. And then when we reach the end of the file, line will no longer evaluate to true, so we can just use an
I wonder if you need to do that. Like you really shouldn't need to do this either.
So
right?
would you
like,
suggest,
can we just
like,
just read it? Like, say so.
So the problem with reading the entire file
It's
is
big,
like you might end
big,
up with
yeah.
like a text. I don't know how many characters are in this file, but at a certain point
yeah.
you could have more than your program could fit. So it's better to go
that's
line
for
by
sure.
line, right?
That's true.
Because one's saved on the hard drive, the other is saved.
Right. No, I get that. Yeah. But
it's good to bring that up because it kind of explains why we're doing it this way, right?
This read line here, what it does is it'll just get one line. So if you notice, if you go back into the script there, it's like on many different lines, right? I think there's like 1,000 lines or 2,000 lines. I don't even know.
This is a B-movie script.
Yes, it is a B-movie script.
What are you doing?
We'll see. You'll see. We're doing analysis on the
data analysis.
Data analysis, yeah. So, we are going to then. So for each character in the line, right? These are the individual characters in our string. So like H or L or whatever, right? So what we need to do is here we've used uppercase letters. Like if you notice, like these are all uppercase letters, right? And we don't want to individually count uppercase and lowercase letters. So what we want to do actually is convert that character into uppercase. And there's a convenient function for that, it's just .upper. And that way, we get the entire script basically will end up being in uppercase and we can work off of that. And so what we can do is for this specific character, right? If it is in this dictionary that we've created, so that means it is A, B, C, D, E, if, one of those letters, then we'll do something with that character. Otherwise, say it's like an exclamation mark or a comma or a period or a space, we'll just ignore it. And this if statement won't enter, right? And yeah, so we'll basically, at that character, make sure you do character .upper, we'll increment that count. Right, so
wrong here. Oh my gosh, I'm in spaces.
It's okay.
No,
it should be then using spaces.
Oh, what? Oh,
you are in tabs, okay. I think. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Awesome. So what this is going to do is open that script. It's going to loop while we have a line to read, and for each line in that, it'll loop over each character in that line, and for each character, it'll convert that character into uppercase. And if that uppercase character is in our dictionary, then it'll increment that character in that dictionary by 1.
Right. So another question you might have, because I just, for like a second, I had like a crazy like moment where I was unsure of what was going on. Because you might think that if character.upper in script character count, well, you already went through every single letter and added it to the script character count, so wouldn't this always be true? And the answer is no, because there's things like spaces, new lines, tabs, potentially numbers, things like that. So this is just making sure that we're only interested here in letters, right? So no, nothing else. So that's why we have to do this check here. Okay. So this is good. So after running this, we should have, if we print it out, right, all of the data that we need.
Yep. And if we look at it, here we go.
Bada bing, bada boom. 15 minutes in, we have all the data that we need, right? And what you could do is you could just look at that, like maybe copy paste it into some sort of document and like compare it against the original data and like try to look at it. But it's kind of hard to tell, especially since like, they're in different orders. It's like you got to look through, there's 26 of them. It's not in the most flattering format ever, right? It's hard to compare them. So what we want to do is we want to make a nice chart so that it's easy to compare them. And that's what the rest of the meeting is going to be about.
So let's start out by just doing something really simple. We're going to create 2 separate charts for each one of the plots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to just type this out.
Sahil, do you want to maybe explain this part?
Sure. So right now, we want to like kind of sort both of the dictionaries so that they're in alphabetical order, right? So we're using the Python sorted function here. But this will, right now we have like, if you look at the top, it's E and then it's T. This is just put A first with its count and then B and then go on, right? And we'll do that for both of the sets of data. And now we want to make a graph with this, right? So we want to have our X values and our Y values because we're doing a bar graph. So we're just going to sort that.
Sorry, I just have to interrupt here. So sorry, I wanted to clarify. So what this dot items does is, it's shown in a comment here, but the dot items will convert, we got this like A, this, B, that, and then sorted will sort all of those. So the result will not be another dictionary because if you remember, dictionaries cannot be sorted because they do not have order. So the result will be a list of these tuples, which are key value pairs. And so we're going to use that, but anyway, sorry, continue.
So we're now going to take we're going to have a list of X values and Y values. So in this case, our X values are just going to be the actual character themselves, like A, B, or C. And then our Y values are going to be the amount of times that they appear, right? Or their frequency.
Yeah, and so currently they're kind of put together. So these are almost like points on a graph. So A is 10, B is 20, right? So for the Matplotlib, what we're going to have to actually do is split them up into 2 separate lists of values. So we're going to have one list that's just going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth, and then another one that is doing that. So let's do that real quick. So we'll focus on script data first. So because they're in these tuples, we can do this for letter and the count in script data. And then what we'll do is to X we'll append the letter, and to the Y we'll append the count. Like that. Right?
Right.
So here's a helpful comment.
Not dot Y, sorry, you have to underscore Y there.
Good catch.
Yeah.
And so what this will do is that. And the same thing will happen for our other data set. So it just looks like that. I know I'm going kind of fast here, so if you're being lost, don't worry about copying it down. The code is posted. Focus on understanding what we're kind of doing here. So far we've split up the X and Y values into separate lists for each of the 2 data sets. Okay? Now here comes the fun part, feeding in this data into Matplotlib so that we can actually create the charts. Okay.
And you may notice, by the way, that script there is some redundancy here at a certain level because script X and English X are going to be the exact same things, but in principle they could be different.
Yeah.
Here we're just trying to make it as simple as possible, so we're doing it twice. But you could think about it in a way where you don't have to do that. So maybe that's an improvement you can make.
All right. And so what we're going to have to do is create 2 separate plots that we can display, one for this data set, one for the other data set. And so the way we do that is using this plot.subplots, and you specify the number of plots you want to have, right?
Right. Recall that PLT is the thing that was imported at the top.
Right. So import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT, and this is obviously pip install matplotlib. Okay. And so axes.
So the
here-
terminology is kind of confusing because axes you might think about like an x and a y axis, but in Matplotlib, axes refer to entire graphs basically. So and figure basically I believe refers to kind of like the entire window.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be using the figure or the fig here, but we will be using the axes. And so when we say axes index 0, so subplots indicates that we want 2 subplots. Axes index 0 is going to be the first graph, and then axes index 1 is going to be the second graph. So you'll kind of see. It is confusing notation, but it might be even better to call it graphs, but the thing is, it's just convention to call it axes, right? So when we say axes index 0 dot bar, that means let's make sure that the first graph is a bar graph, and the data that's going to be on the x-axis is going to be our script x list, and then the data that's going to be the corresponding data that's going to be on the y-axis is script y, and then for the second graph, obviously it's the same thing just with the English, right? And then what we need to do is, so this will create the graph kind of objects, right? But we need to actually show them. So that's what the plt.show is. And I think this works, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
It'll work. We just have it out of the title.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't
I'll
added the
point
title.
that out in just a sec. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna run this, and what I'll get are 2 plots. Look at that. Oh, and it's lagging. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
And so if I actually make it bigger, you guys can see.
Oh, yes, and also it's out of proportion also.
Yeah, it's out of proportion, but you can see the
Yeah.
scales do look like that.
Alright.
And here you
Yeah.
can kind of see some similarities. Like, look at how often E appears in one and how often E appears in the other, right? But there's no
Mhm.
titles right now. It's a bit confusing which one's which. So let's real quick do that, right? So for the first one, we'll set a title, and this we know is the B movie script because obviously we're passing in script X, script Y. And the other one is...
So set title is just a function that's just built in, or it's a method that's just built into this object. You could find that by looking up the documentation if you didn't know or you forgot.
Right. And so these will just add titles to our graphs here. And what we can do is run it, and now it's a little bit better. We have titles for both of the things, and so we can see there's a lot of E's in this one, there's a lot of E's in that one. Look at that, there's a little bit less N's than O's in both of them, so on and so forth, right? It's a little tricky, though, to actually compare them very closely. You can only notice the big things, so maybe what would be better is if the bars were next to each other's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can see some big patterns, but maybe the small ones are a little bit harder to see. So so this is one way. So a better way to visualize this might be with a double bar graph, which is what we're going to do. So the double bar graph is where you guys should know what a double bar graph is. Come on, like, no, but it's like where there's 2 bars right on the same graph for each category. You could also think about doing this as a pie chart. So maybe maybe we'll see that at some point as well, but not today, not from us. So you can look up how to do that by yourself.
Yeah, maybe take
and
that
maybe
as a
post it in the
challenge,
and maybe post it in the Google Classroom. I did see, by the way, Andrew, your game company, very cool. I think you're going to have some potential copyright issues down the road, but you can deal with that when you get there. But yeah, very good. Next week, I want to say, by the way, this is our last coding challenge. So next week, we're going to do is we're going to kind of have a little, celebration and do some kind of maybe some trivia, some review. And I want to also really make an effort to look at in more detail all of the things that have been submitted by you guys over the course of the year. So, because we've had a lot of like cool submissions, right, for stuff, and I'd like to kind of celebrate that a little bit.
Yep. Okay, awesome. So let's move on because we're like a little short on time today in general, right? So, okay, so double bar graph. Okay. I'm going to copy this from the top, and I'm going to pretend that this code doesn't exist because when we actually coded this, we commented it out. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. Technically, you could delete this. I'm going to actually delete it. All right, and in our final code, both of them are there. Okay, so I'm going to keep that, And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a list. And this time I'm just going to do 3 lists, kind of as we mentioned. It's kind of redundant to have 4 because 2 of them are the same, right? And since we're working with one graph now, it kind of only makes sense for there to be one x-axis, and then the 2 y-axes are going to refer to each of the 2 like heights for both of the bars, right? So, oh, oops, y2, right? So this is going to be the x data, so this is just going to be the alphabet. This is going to be the bar heights for the B movie, and this is going to be the bar heights for the English language, okay? Then what we can do is, again, kind of like last time for our previous code, this is going to look very familiar to you guys, right? So split the data into separate lists, kind of like we did. And so for script data, we'll put the x values and then the y values. And that'll fill in 2 of the lists, but we still need to fill in this other list. So what we'll do is do the same loop, but we don't need to append the x a second time because that's already there. We don't want to have duplicate entries, right? So we are only going to deal with y2. And in fact, you could even call this underscore since we never use it, but I think it's less confusing this way anyways. Okay, so now we have our data in 3 separate lists, right? Now we got to figure out how are we going to make this double bar graph. Unfortunately, Matplotlib doesn't actually have like the most beautiful double bar graph functionality, but we're still going to show you how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a little bit hacky, but also it's very typical. So it's like, yeah, they should probably implement a better way to do this. But
yeah, and
you know,
can
at
create your
the
own
moment, this
function
is
that
the
also does
standard.
this, but
So trust that we are showing you this state-of-the-art way to make a double bar graph in Matplotlib, even if it seems kind of sketchy.
yeah, okay. So I want to take my time explaining this because like it confused us as well. All right. So we're gonna have to use this subplots thing again, and I believe if we don't specify anything, then it's just creating. I don't know. I think it's creating. I'm not too sure, honestly. But what that allows us to do, I think it only creates one subplot. That's the idea? But
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we're going to pass in. So we're going to create 2 bar graphs again, but it's going to create it on the same kind of like plot, right? So the way we do that is if we pass in, so we do axes.bar. So let's just do one data set first, right? We'll pass in the x values, and then we'll pass in the y 1 values, okay? And then what we will do is plot.show that, okay? And let's see, just make sure that works. Okay, and so this is kind of familiar to what we had last time. We have a beautiful bar graph. Okay, now what we can do, and I'm going to do this so that we can differentiate it, is we can pass in a color. Okay, I'm just going to set this to R for red for now. And when I run it, you can see we get a red bar graph now. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Then what we can do is I can add another bar graph, and that's going to be axes.bar. And this time we're going to do x and y2. And you're going to see what happens. Okay? And actually, you might not be able to see because one might be out of scale from the other, but hold on, let's see this.
Oh yeah, it might be like on top of it, like no.
Yeah, it might be because if you look here, I'm not sure.
Yeah, those are a lot bigger. Yeah. Because
So,
blue is the we're
actually,
using the
no, I'm thinking about
English,
it,
right?
and
No, it's just hiding. It's just hiding because we have
yeah,
it normally.
you're right. You're right. So if I put this one before it, maybe it'll show.
Yeah, it will. This one will show. It'll look
There
really
we go.
small. Yeah.
There we go. Right. Okay, so let me explain what's going on here, right? So we're first drawing the blue bars, right? And that is the frequency in English. And then over top of that, we're drawing the ones in the B movie. And so the English one used a sample of 40,000 words to count how many letters, like how frequent letters appear, right? And so you can see like E is up here in like the 20,000s, right? Versus the B movie script didn't have so many words, or for in this case characters. And so the amount of times we counted it meant that like it's a lot smaller, right? But what we really care about here isn't just the counts, it's kind of the proportion or the frequency of the letter. And so when we want to compare it, right, these two are going to have to be on some kind of equal scale, because on one, right, we sampled far fewer characters than for the other, right?
Right. So the way that we'll fix that is just by dividing by the total number of characters sampled in each case, and that should get us what we're looking for.
Right. And conveniently, Y1 and Y2 contain the counts for all of the letters. So index 0 is A, index 2 is B, index 3 is index 2 is C, index 3 is D, so on and so forth. So what we can do is just to get the counts for that, right? What we can do is, we have to do this after we append the data, right? We can get the sum for Y1, and that is just going to be sum of Y1. And there's this beautiful function that just does the work for us. And then what we need to do is go through every single element in that list, right? And so for item in Y1, and each of those items we're going to want to divide by the sum. And that way we get kind of the percentage that specific character occupies in the entire list. So if there was 20 A's and then 10, if there's 20 A's, then 10 B's, and then 10 C's, then B would have a frequency of 0.5 because it has 50%. So here's actually a pretty good comment here that I wrote out. So converts the count per letter into frequency. So what percent of this letter is in the data? So for example, if A has a frequency of 0.12, that means 12% of the letters in the entire text were A. Okay, awesome. And so now what we can do is we can have a look at what this does to our data. Okay, awesome. These look a lot closer now together. If you can see, the blues only stick out a few times, and that's when they are greater than the reds. But the problem now is you can't see both of the bars, right? And that's because they're being drawn on top of each other. So what we're going to have to do is, since there's no double bar graph functionality in Matplotlib, we're actually going to have to hack this, I guess, a little bit in such a way that some of the bars are a little bit more to the left and some of the bars are a little bit more to the right. Okay?
Yeah.
And so what we will do is, first things first, right? What we will do is we will convert this right here into the numerical indices of the letters. So instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, sorry, can we take questions later, or is it?
Okay, then I'll wait.
Okay, awesome. So, yeah, instead of just dealing with X, which is currently A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way, like the entire alphabet, we want the numerical position of all those letters. So instead of this, what we'll do is we'll do range len X. Okay? And we'll do this for both of them, and then we'll see what this does. Okay? So we're running it, and as you can see now, instead of having these letters on the bottom, now it's like at 0, this is the bar, and that's for A, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And it's only showing them every 5, but there are like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
Exactly.
Just to clarify
this is
that.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay? And so what we can actually do, right, is we can offset their positions in each of these lists, right? So what we're going to do is, for each item in this, what we will do, so for I in this, on one of them, we will subtract. So we'll do I minus 0.2. And for this one, we will add I plus 0.2. So now these values are going to be 0.4 units apart on the x-axis, right? So just to show you guys here, the first parameter works as the x positions for the bars. So the first one will be negative 0.2, 0.8, 1.8, and the other one will be 0.2, 1.2, 2.2, so on and so forth. Okay, let's see what that does. Awesome. So if you actually look at it now, what's going on?
Some weird 3D perspective.
It looks kind of 3D, almost like the casting shadows. But what we've actually done is we've kind of shifted each of these bars by a little bit on the x-axis. So we've kind of applied a bit of like a transformation. But they're still kind of overlapping. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to reduce the width of these bars, right?
Right.
And so the way we can do that, right? So obviously we know that y1, y2 is the height of the bar. But then what we can do is we can pass in a third parameter here, 0.4, and that's actually the width of the bar. So if we do 0.4 as the width of the bar, right, then run it. Let's see what that does. And if I show you guys, now you can see we've got the double bar format. They're no longer overlapping, and we've still got some spaces in between each of these values, which is pretty cool, honestly.
And the last thing that we need to do is bring back the labels.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to point out, right, because we're just working with the x values, if you imagine right now, 0.4 is the width, and we have two bars, right, and they're both touching. So the actual width of the two bars is twice that because they're both the same width. And so the width of that is 0.8. And since each one of these bars appears one apart on the thing, that gives kind of these 0.2 units remaining, right? If the bars take up 0.8, that leaves 0.2 units of spacing between them. And so obviously if the sum was 1 and not 0.8, then all of the bars would be touching, right? So if I instead did 0.25 and then 0.5, then obviously the bars would have to touch. And so that's what we see, right? We see this kind of alternating thing going on. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that back because we don't want them touching. This isn't a histogram, this is a bar graph, right? Okay, awesome. And yeah, so we're going to want to bring back all of those letters on the bottom. We don't know what 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth means, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to call this function right before we show it, plot dot xticks, and that tells it what each x value should be, right? And so the way we can do
what
that,
each x label should be.
Yeah, what each x label should be. You're right. So for example, we want 0 to be A, and then 1 to be B, and then kind of like if we look back here, right? Again, we want 0 over here. Instead of 0, we want A, and then imagine there was a tick that was 1 over here, we want that B, and then C, and then D. So all we have to do is you pass in one parameter, you pass in what the numerical x value is, and then the second parameter is what you want that like tick label to be, right? So we know that the numerical x values is just range len x, because that's going to give, we know len of x is 26, right? There's 26 letters in the alphabet. Range 26 just gives us 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 25. So that's all of our numerical x values. And then the values we want them to map to is obviously the actual values in that x value array. And so when we do that, we get our letters back. Will you look at that? So now we know A, and then B, and then C, so on and so forth. Okay? Now, the other thing is we don't know what is red, what is blue, what is red, right? So we're going to add some flair to this, right? So what you can do is you can add labels to each of these, and then we're going to display a legend that will actually use these label values. So we know this one is the B movie, and we know this one is English, right? And what we can do is then add a legend. So plot.legend. and that will show us a legend. So now we know red is the B movie, and blue is the B movie, red is English. Oh my goodness, right?
And yeah, and red and blue are not necessarily the nicest colors for this, especially since this is a B movie. So it might be better to appropriately make this into yellow.
Actually, we have a very nice yellow
you have
right
a specific. You have a specific.
Yeah, we have a
yellow.
specific yellow I want to use. So I've just passed in some color codes, so you can actually specify the color based on color code.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I run this now, we'll have red. We'll have yellow and black. Okay.
And let's make that full screen.
Awesome.
Okay, wonderful. We can see it. And if we look at our original hypothesis, we'll notice that. Wait, is it backwards?
Is it?
It says that B shows up more in English.
Oh, it's backwards because we flipped the Y values to demonstrate something. Yeah, sorry. My bad. These Y values are flipped, right? So remember, Y1 is taking stuff from the script. Yeah, sorry, I neglected these two values. Okay, and before I real quick run it again, I'm going to add some labels because otherwise, I actually have a comment here, so I'm just going to paste this in. It's very important you guys do this because otherwise you lose half a mark for not including labels on your graph, and then you also have to have a title on your graph. Otherwise, you lose a full mark on your test, right?
Exactly. So, with this, we'll get 100%. So let's show it one last time. Yeah, Mr. Kwan. Yeah, exactly. All right, this is a perfect way, Mr. Kwan, for you to take marks off people. Make a Matplotlib project, and then if they don't put the title, they get marks off.
Okay, awesome. And this is our final result here. And so, yeah, Maxwell wanted to talk a bit about our hypothesis when starting out this project and the final result.
Right, so you can see that it's maybe not as dramatic as you would have hoped, but there are more B's in the B movie than there are regularly in English, which is kind of delightful to see. Also, a lot more O's, like a lot more O's, and there are not very many D's. So I don't know, for whatever reason. But yeah, that's it, guys, for today. Sorry for kind of running off here, but Alex and I do need to go to chess club now because we have a tournament actually.
Wait, before you go, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, quickly.
How do you control where the two individual bars sit in correlation to each other? Because I thought like at first it was like one was above the other, but then they moved so they were side by side. How do you do that?
So when they were on...
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So I think that maybe Sahil can answer this question. Basically, yeah. So we're doing some like offsetting, and it's kind of like a hacky way to do it, but we're doing some offsetting there in order to push one to the right and one to the left there.
Oh, so basically, by default, they all show up in the same spot.
Yeah.
However, by manually offsetting each of the bars, you can make it so that like sits.
Yeah, so
like
we're actually
right.
So what we're doing is we're manipulating the X position of each of these bars to achieve this double bar graph effect. And when they were on top of each other, they weren't actually on top of each other. One was on top of the other, as in quite literally drawn over top of the other.
Okay,
so it wasn't like we stacked them. It was like one was put over top, pasted over top of the other one. So all we did was we moved them each to the side a little bit, and then you can see both bars. Okay.
Okay. So
Okay. Yeah, I think, sorry, we really do have to go. I think Sahil is going to take the rest of these questions. Yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week for our final meeting. It'll be fun. I hope to see everyone there because it'll be very exciting for sure.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll do something
bye for
fun
now.
next week. Yeah.